I'm with Andy Sutton. Andy is the tennis director at the Unionville Tennis Club.
Yeah, Unionville Tennis Club in Unionville, Ontario.
In Unionville, Ontario.
Yeah.
You're also the head course facilitator for Ontario.
Correct.
You're a busy guy.
I am, yeah. But, it's good to be busy. I like it, so.
We're here in Calgary
Yep.
at the TPA Roadshow.
Yes.
Can you describe a little bit about what we're trying to achieve, what we're learning here at this roadshow?
Basically, the roadshow this year is twofold. We're trying to look at what is quality standards for kids programming, and by that what we mean is we want to try to empower coaches and down the line parents to be able to, for the coaches, make sure they provide programming that is of good quality. And what that means is making sure that it's engaging, it is informative, so people have improvement based on what they see, and more than anything, it creates a love for the game so that people understand that tennis really is the sport of a lifetime. So that's kind of what we want. And then for parents, what it is for them is eventually down the road, we're going to try to organize it in such a way that they could look at this quality standards document and recognize, if I go to my program and I see, and I look, I'm watching my kids and I see that they're doing this, like the instructor's caring, and I see they're being challenged appropriately, and no one's really standing around. There's a lot of active participation, and all these sorts of things. And they could say, this is a great program, what they've got here is really, really good. So we want to be able to kind of do that in those two ways. So that's kind of what's happening.
Excellent. You've run a lot of big tennis facilities. You've had a long coaching career. When you're looking at moving large groups of say red court 5-6-year-old players,
yeah,
what kind of skills and environment does it take to raise large groups of juniors through a path,
yeah,
to where they become tournament players?
You mean from the coach's perspective,
or
from
a coach's perspective? What kind of a skill set do you need?
You know what the truth is, and I think many people look at it kind of backwards. And people are starting to recognize how things need to be done. Really, the most skilled coaches really need to be working with the youngest starter players, because our job at that stage is to, one, develop their athletic potential, and then secondly, to give them the ability to, with that athletic potential, become tennis players. So we're developing the skills that will allow them, as they get older and become able to sort of handle more things, to be great athletes. And then if we have a great athlete, they're going to make a great tennis player. So you need to have very good communication skills. You need to have very good organizational skills to make sure that you can keep many kids in a small space, well organized, so they're all working on something that's meaningful to them. You need to have a lot of good technical knowledge, but also have the understanding that you can explain this technical knowledge in a really, I almost want to say non-threatening, but like a simplistic way, so that you can, let a child of a young age, 5, 6, 7, understand something that you could explain to an adult in a really complex or complicated way, but it really means the same thing. So you need to have a suite of skills like that. And then finally, probably the most important thing is you have to have a passion, for being on the court, because how much the people taking lessons, whatever age it happens to be, but especially the young kids, the thing that really draws them in and makes them have that love of the game is if you have that love of the game and you're prepared to give that energy when you're coaching, they love it, and they learn, and they really it develops that love of the sport where now they're tennis players. Like, they may be little, but they're not just an athlete, or they're not just a kid who does tennis, they're a tennis player.
Right. So if we look at it from a coach's perspective, you got to have a love for the game and passion, as you say,
yeah,
and these skills. What about from a player's perspective? What do you look for in younger players and say, okay, what kind of skills do they need? What kind of attributes do they need to really make it big in junior tennis, and maybe eventually onto college or the pros? What do you look for in young players?
And you mean at what sort of age? Like for the really little ones, or kind of?
Yeah, little kids. What kind of skills do they need to make it?
You know what? Probably more than anything, I think they need to have the skill of perseverance. Regardless of how the practice goes, they kind of pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and they're ready to, give me more, coach. Like, let's do more, because becoming a great tennis player, it's a long-term kind of thing, and it's. I'll give you a little story. There used to be a kid that I used to know named Peter, and he and his dad used to come to the club where I worked at, and what they would do is they would spend all Saturday afternoon in the hallway between the set of courts at an indoor facility, and they would, throw and catch and hit balls back and forth, and people would show up late for a court, and they'd run on the court, and for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, they'd hit as many balls as they could. They'd come off the court, and they'd do that back in the, because he had that drive where, like, I have to get better. I really want to do it. Just that love of, love of the work, love of the work ethic. And he did really quite well. He became national champion.
Right.
So, but that's probably the biggest thing, because you can look at talented players and, but if you're not prepared to put in the hard work, it's not going to matter, and so that's ultimately what's going to make the difference. And if you've got talent, then you can go further. But you got to work. So the kid who's prepared to put in the work and they enjoy the work, I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Great. Now, as one of the lead course facilitators in the country, you're heavily involved in certification, obviously. How would you, globally speaking, where would you put Canada in terms of our sort of certification system? Like, where do you think we stand in terms of, say, the ITF certification system or the PTR? How would you describe the Canadian certification on a sort of a global?
Yeah, again, that's a really good question. You know what? The thing I think is we're very fortunate in that we have, again, a lot of really passionate people who do a lot with a little. I mean, we're not one of the big four, but we're kind of right at the doorstep of those countries. And actually, in terms of certification, we're at the leading edge. There's countries that are, that have been at the leading edge for a long time, like France and Belgium, but I'd kind of put us in the tier of countries right behind them. Right. Because what we do know about education and how people learn is we've more recently shifted to a competency-based model. And what that really means is give people the knowledge, but make sure they can apply that knowledge. And many of the certification systems around the world are still kind of in an older format where it's like just give knowledge. But you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't have a way to bring that to what you do, it doesn't mean that much. And in Canada, that's something we've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort making sure that our system, it makes people knowledgeable, but people who are also effective. And so, yeah, I mean, we're right up there with the best in the world. I think, and in fact, when they classify certification systems, there's 9 gold level systems. We're one of those 9.
Oh wow! I didn't know that. That's great.
So, and that's rated by the ITF actually. So yeah, we're one of the top systems in the world.
What is the biggest challenge for new coaches looking to get in to tennis coaching as a career? They're in a certification program or course. What's the biggest challenge for new coaches coming into this industry?
I think probably for new coaches coming into the industry, probably the biggest thing that they need to do is to understand that they're at the beginning of a long road. People who are further down the road, they might know more, but they still recognize they're still on that road, because you're going to be learning throughout your entire career. And so don't be intimidated to do things, to try things, to speak to people, to learn. You look over at the court next to you and you see someone doing something, you think, that's a great way to do it. Borrow it, make it your own. But I'd say that's probably one thing, because that love of lifelong learning, that's really, really important. But 2, don't be shy to still understand who you are and what you believe in, and follow that, because your job is to convince people that this is the right thing to do. You have their best interests at heart. You need to believe in what you say, and maybe somebody else has a different way to say it or look at it, but you need to believe in it. So you got to follow your gut, trust what you think, even if you're newer to the career. It's going to serve you well, I think, in the long run.
Hey, Andy, thanks for coming to Calgary.
No worries. I'm glad to be here.
Pleasure to see you.
Good to see you as always.
And I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for doing this.
No problems. Thank you.